What is a music genre that you had to learn to appreciate?
Anything sappy, romantic, and slow. Is that a genre? I don't know.
No.
Power
Maybe
ballads?
Singer songwriter. You love a power ballad.
Sometimes.
You like a power ballad.
You think so? There are certain key power ballads from the 80s.
Don't Stop Believing. Isn't that a power ballad?
No.
Name a power ballad.
That song by Poison, Heaven. That would be a power ballad. I don't know. Beth by Kiss.
I don't know any of these songs. I probably know them, but I don't know them by name.
Yeah.
Well, I actually so we keep a Spotify playlist for road trips where I try to add his music so I can also listen to mine because I hate his so much. And I have a song on our playlist called I Don't Want to Hear No Sad Songs. And he always belts it out. Songs
also. No,
so for me, it's kind of the opposite. Ben loves EDM.
And for those of you who don't know what EDM is, that stands for electronic dance music.
It's like, bah, 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 bah. I feel like after a little bit, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Like my heart is like jumping. I was like, can we be done with this? Oh my God.
No, it gets me amped up.
But I have found some EDM that I do like so that I could add it to our playlist. Like I like Tiesto. He has a Red Light song. It's very good. I like some EDM remixes of songs. What is that song we have like 10 remixes of?
Oh gosh.
Is it
lots of them?
True Colors or
no, not True Colors.
It's like some 80s like real sappy song. It's a Cyndi Lauper song.
Time After Time.
Time After Time.
Yes. Time After Time.
We have like 6 versions of it.
11 actually.
11. Man.
By at least 10 different artists.
It's too many. But if I'm going to listen to EDM, if it can be Cyndi Lauper EDM, then I'm game for that.
So with that, to our listeners, welcome to the Kimberly and Coach Show, where we bring you actionable practices that you can use in your leadership and collaboration. Today, I'm Coach Kimberly is right next to me. Today, we're stepping into our first episode on what we're calling our conflict resolution starter kits.
Nice.
Now, today we're starting with a particular framework that actually, this is not our framework, by the way. This is actually from Richard Tanner Pascal's book, Managing on the Edge.
Which is like from the 80s, but I've seen it in so many circles since then, but it originated with Richard.
Yeah. So thanks, Richard. So this is how to manage and even capitalize on disagreement and conflict. So this is, we're not jumping into the full deep into the pool, but we're definitely pushing you into that middle spot, because like a public pool, you got all the little kids at the shallow end, and then you got like the high schoolers and the middle schoolers in the middle part, and then
the scarier part.
Yeah. And then like in the
always
deep
stay away
end,
from the middle schoolers.
Oh man, then the deep end is where the diving boards are, right? Well, we're in the middle part of the pool. Okay, we're in the middle part of the pool here. And so the framework that we're talking about is called Fit, Split, Contend, Transcend. Now, in this area in particular, I'm just the magician's beautiful assistant. Okay, so Kimberly is the conflict resolution talent here in this space. So
we can say I have more patience for conflict.
That could be. So Kimberly, kick us off with a conversation on this framework around fit, split, contend, and transcend.
Okay. Well, the first thing that we have to look at is that often we are very resistant to conflict in corporate settings.
Yep.
And so what we do is we have a meeting. The boss is saying something nobody likes. They say, da, 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 we're going to do this. And then everybody goes, and then you end the meeting. Nobody says anything. And then you go out into the hallway and everybody's whispering like, that is never going to work. What a dumb idea. Da, da, da.
The meeting after the meeting.
but they only say it like kind of in little groups to each other. And then they all just watch the thing tank because nobody wanted to actually move into the tension of conflict and disagreement. And we tend to sometimes really villainize the people who are bringing up disagreeing points, especially if we are the one that's giving the direction. Then someone saying, I have some questions. What about this? And what about this? We feel like they are a troublemaker. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to create a desire for disagreement and conflict. So let me just build a case for that.
Okay.
Just real quick. If you don't have it now, you will have to clean it up later. That is the case for this. Because when you have disagreement and conflict in the idea phase, you notice some things that may not work before you do them and spend a lot of money to find out that they don't work. Okay. So when people feel like in a context of meetings and brainstormings and planning that they cannot bring a dissenting opinion, then you will have more mistakes. Okay. It's just like a given. You absolutely will make mistakes because you will not see everything that you could have seen if there was space for people to disagree. And so when we bring this tool out, which is from this leadership book in the 80s, what we are doing is actually creating a framework for disagreement and for conflict. We are going to intentionally look at different perspectives on this issue. So it also serves as some really good training wheels for having that team intelligence that we talked about at the beginning of this season, that when we want people to bring their full perspective and their intelligence and their dissenting opinions, we need tools to be able to manage them. So taking this into play and doing it in a very formal way at first can give training wheels for you to be able to create space for disagreement without feeling like there's an inherent disrespect. If you're doing this paradigm well, then when you disagree, it is seen as respectful, not disrespectful, because you're actually bringing what you see, you're contributing your own intelligence, and you are bought in to the outcome enough to disagree on the front end. And that is very respectful. As long as it's received well, then people will continue to do it. And so that respect is going both ways. People are allowed to think with their own brain, and you are allowed to hear their thoughts because you are allowing them to disagree occasionally.
This sounds fun and also very different than most of the time what we experience.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not always fun, especially when people are afraid of conflict. At first, it can be really like tender and scary. But by giving it a framework, it can really help people tiptoe into that. And then how you respond to the disagreement is going to let them know whether they tiptoe right back out or whether they wade a little deeper into bringing their full thoughts into conversation in the future. So the first thing that we do, the first part is fit. And this is the part that a lot of people skip when they are trying to manage a complex problem where there's a lot of disagreement. They go right into a meeting and they go, let's talk about how we disagree. And now people immediately polarize onto sides of the issue, right? And so we don't want to skip this first step, which is fit. And the question here is, what holds us together as a team? Now, that could be the mission, if we're really keyed into our mission and values as a company, which lots of companies have missions and values that they couldn't even tell you what they are. But if yours is strong, you can start a meeting where you're doing fit, split, contend, transcend with the mission and values. Here's what we're here to do. Or it could be problem specific. Like, here's the problem that we're facing. Here's our desired outcome. Here are the things that we are united around, And so where's the win-win-win going to be? Like, what are the factors that we are in agreement about? And when we establish that we are all on the same team and we are in agreement about X, then we have a good foundation for when we move into disagreement. We are reminded that we belong to the same team. We're on the same mission. We're not fighting each other here. Okay. So we might disagree about how to attain that mission, but we're still on the same team. And so taking a little bit of time, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to establish that fit, gives you a really good foundation.
That's cool. That's cool.
So from there, you're going to move from fit into split. And what you're doing is you're intentionally saying, we're going to disagree as much as we can for a certain amount of time.
On purpose?
On purpose. So
I can just feel some people be like,
you don't have to disagree contentiously. You don't have to be adversarial and, angry about it or disrespectful in any way. In fact, we don't want to be disrespectful, but we want to bring out the areas where we disagree. Now, if you're using a tool, you can use particular categories. So for example, we often use the impact tool, which is around the way that people are wired for collaboration. So impact stands for mentoring, pioneering, aligning, championing, and teaching. And all 5 of those are going to kind of guard and grow different things in an organization. So the mentoring people, they're going to guard and grow the relational dynamics. They really want people to feel safe and cared for and valued. Versus the pioneering people, they want new opportunities, innovation. They want to move fast, take ground fast. So they might leave some people behind in that process. And we could go through all 5, but we won't for this particular exercise. But if you're using a tool like Impact, you could split in 2 ways. One would be that people could just bring their perspective. Like I live in the mentoring championing world, the 2 people things. I both am like the relational glue and also the inviter, includer, and positivity person. And so I'm going to want to keep things upbeat and I want people to feel cared for. And I'm going to wear my hat that I live in and say, as we're solving this problem, are people feeling cared for? How are people receiving this news? How are people equipped to actually move into what we're asking them to do? I'm going to ask all of those questions and I'm going to slow us down to make sure that people are cared for well. Whereas a pioneering person is going to wear their hat and they're going to say, we need to move forward with this and this and this. We need what has been working hasn't what we've done in the past hasn't worked. We need to do this a whole new way. And so they're going to bring their own perspective. And so what you're doing is intentionally kind of saying, what do you see? Where do you disagree? What's the value that you're protecting? What's the danger of doing it this way? And we're inviting each person to bring their perspective. So that is the most organic way to do it, in the sense that people are being who they actually are, right? But another way that you can do it is that as a team, you could go through each of the 5 personalities in the impact. So you could say, okay, we're facing this problem. What do we need to see about it if we're looking at it with our mentoring hat? And the whole team could look. People might really be confused by the way we're communicating this. People might feel like they didn't get enough input. People may not feel like they're being trained and equipped well. Okay, let's take this hat off and let's talk about the pioneering hat. People may feel like we just are trying a new thing because we try a new thing every 3 months. Well, actually, that's what the mentor would say. The pioneer would say, we need to do this a new way. I learned this new book. So, but you would go through each one as a team. And that works, especially when maybe you don't have all 5 perspectives on your team. Now, you can do this without a tool that is a language of value. You can do it through the lenses of the roles that people play. So, for example, let's say we have an idea for a new product and you've got the design team and you've got the production team and you've got the accounting team, like the financial team, right? So the production team, they're going to be really interested in how fast can we get this? What are the complexities of moving this forward? What about the things we're already producing? The design team is going to be like, we need it to look really good. We need to be able to compete with Apple. We need, we need this much budget so that we can have this particular design. It's worth the extra money. The financial team is going to be like, we don't have the extra money. Where are we getting the extra money from? And so that you're kind of within your roles, guarding, growing what positionally you're kind of tasked to guard and grow. But however we do it, we are inviting for a clear space, that split of perspective. We want to put every perspective on the table, essentially, before we move on into any decision-making. And part of what this does is it allows people to feel heard, but they also have time to hear the other side. A lot of times when we're in disagreement and we don't have a good framework for it, we are actively not hearing the other side. We're just yelling our side. And then when someone decides against us, we feel mad, right? But if we have instead a framework where we're saying we want every piece of input on the table as much as we can within a certain amount of time, it's very good to frame these things with time. So like for 30 minutes, we're going to look through these lenses, or for an hour, maybe a 1 day retreat, whatever the case is, scope of the problem. But you're going to frame it. You're going to say like, at a certain point, we're going to stop the split, right?
Because otherwise it may consume the rest of the day.
Yeah, it could just go forever, depending on how contentious the problem is, right? So you get everything out on the table. So that's the fit split side. Okay.
All right. So then the fact that we're calling out and making space for this,
right,
is really cool and very interesting, because now we're cordoning off like and giving permission and a voice to the different perspectives. I think that's really neat, because we don't see that happen in a lot of spaces.
Right.
It's a lot of spaces, it's my way or the highway. And like, well, that's only so helpful, and at the end of the day, I think the leadership has to make a decision, but I think the fact that we can bring all of these perspectives in and have that, have those different eyes on different parts of the process. Wow, that could be really cool. Talk to us about Contend, though.
Yeah. And just think about, if you are a leader, how much more information you have in your decision making, even if you stopped right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you see things that you wouldn't have seen before, for sure. But we don't necessarily want to stop there. We want to move forward as a team as we make decisions as much as possible. Now, whenever we talk about this, people say, what if we don't land on one decision together? And often it does fall to the leader to say, okay, I've heard all of the sides of this, I'm going to make the decision. But this is actually a system that is geared towards team decision making. So whenever possible, you gotta want to land as a team. If you land as a team, you're going to have better buy-in than if you just decree as a leader what your team is doing. Yeah. You're always going to have better buy-in when we've agreed together. And so as we start the move towards making a decision, we're going to go into the next step, which is contend. So now we've got all the disagreeing ideas on the table, essentially, and we're going to start to see what's rising to the top. So as a team, we're going to kind of look at what has been said and say, what are the most important factors in this decision? And we're going to name them, and they're probably going to contend against each other, right? So for example, if we use that product example that we used earlier, design is important. We do want to compete in terms of having a really well-designed product and an artistry. Maybe that's part of our values. And we have a budget. We only have so much money. If we lose money on the product, then our business will fail. The financial team does need to weigh in on what we have a budget for. It would be really lovely if we could always launch the rocket to the moon, but there might not always be a budget for that. Imagine if someone on the design team for the Amazon rocket, if they had this split and contend, I think the design for their rocket would have been different. That's a whole different thing. But you want to have these key things, like what can we not ignore? So you're going to let some things fall off. Like, yeah, we noticed that, but it's not the most important thing. You're going to let the couple of things rise to the top that are really in competition with each other. And then we as a team are going to push them back and forth. And that might be people who didn't bring that idea saying, I actually see what Coach is saying here, but it also makes a lot of sense what Kimberly is saying. And then the team is going to start to move. Like, are there ways that we could accomplish a little bit of both? Are we going to push our budget to have better design? Or are we in a place in a company where we have to make some sacrifices on design because this is where our budget is, and we have to listen to the input of the person who knows the numbers here? And so the team is going to say, we hear you, that is important. And this is also important. And eventually the team is going to start to have a sense on the foundation of the fit. what are we trying to accomplish in this conversation? How does this fit into the larger mission and vision and values of our company or of our community or of our neighborhood or whatever the case may be, to decide what is going to be most important in this situation. And once you come to a decision, that's where you hit transcend, which is not everybody gets everything that they want, but everybody is involved in the decision making, and everybody kind of comes together when it works really perfectly. It doesn't always come to a perfect transcendence, but more often than you would expect, the whole team will go, yeah, looking at all the factors, I agree that we should go this way in this case. And you can come to a decision as a team, and now you have full buy-in from your team. But even if you don't fully transcend as a team, you're still kind of locked in a couple of places. You have fully heard each person as a leader. And when you make your call, you will be able to lean on that split and contend conversation because of these factors that were brought up in our discussion. What I've decided is I think we're going to go this way, and we'll see how it goes. And then we'll learn from that. So sometimes you are going to still have to make that call solo as a leader. You just can't avoid that. But everybody's voice is really heard in how you're making that call. And then what this does is if you continue to use this as a tool, maybe in this case, we were not able to really invest in design because we really had these other financial factors. But the next time this comes up, we remember we held this ground here. What if we reach far for this next time? Because last time we really guarded the bottom line. This time we have a little extra. Let's really shoot for the fences on design. And of course, we could put this in any kind of topic.
Right. Yeah, I think this can become, as a team grows its muscles in this, because first couple of rounds are going to be challenging. It's like anything, you go into the gym for the first time in a long while, or maybe the first time ever.
For some people, this is ever.
Yeah. For some people, this is ever.
Yeah.
Because this is a different kind of paradigm, because as a leader, am I used to inviting in criticism and critique of these concepts? And I think one of the things
have I been taught that means I'm being disrespected?
Oh,
because the leader will kill this every time if they feel like a disagreement means that there's disrespect.
So I think as part of this idea, we kind of have to separate out the ideas from the people, and understanding that the idea, even if it is your idea, because like, well, this is my baby. I'm like, but it can't be your baby. Okay. It's an idea. It's a product. It's a service, whatever, it's an approach, an initiative, whatever the thing happens to be.
Yeah.
We've got to separate it up from ourselves and look at it from as many different angles as we can. And I think that having that kind of primer a little bit before going into this to say, hey, we're not attacking each other here.
And as a leader, a lot of your job is to make sure that they don't.
Yeah.
Like we disagree, but we will not attack each other. We will not use shame in our arguments. We will not name call. We will not raise our voice. We'll not swear at each other. It's funny, the things that you have to kind of put boundaries around, depending on where the culture is as you start to do this.
Right.
But the amount of times that I in client work have had to say, like, we will not call names and we will not swear at each other while we have this conversation is dozens.
Yeah. You just got to say it. Because again, these are this conflict resolution started. One of the reasons why we decided to do this series inside of all the rest of the conversations we're having in the season is that a lot of tools are not being used. A lot of folks don't have these muscles. Right. Let's get these in front of you, and hopefully it'll kind of expand how you can approach conflict. And because we do a fair amount of conflict resolution and mediation.
It's true.
It's definitely a something that we kind of stumbled into, I would say, a little bit, but just because of the nature of the work that we do, as team dynamics consultants, but tools like this can really start to step up that next level of thinking and leverage disagreement, leverage conflict. All kinds of crazy stuff can come out of that.
I think you stumbled into it.
I stumbled into
I dragged him into conflict mediation.
He was like, let's go. Okay.
I grew up in conflict mediation. True. But it is in corporate spaces, we often don't have any muscles for it. So your gym analogy is very good, because we can, if we cannot have any disagreement without having a feeling of disrespect and a relational break, then you will never have the full engagement and buy-in of your team, because they will hold all of the ways they disagree for the after the meeting. And that gets really toxic to culture. So, so these are muscles that we need. And I swear, if you haven't done this, but you're willing to try it, what I will tell you is, as you do it, by the third or fourth time, as long as you respond well when people disagree with you, as the leader, you have to make sure that you're open to people disagreeing with you.
Yep.
It will get easier and people will breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, like all of our ideas are welcome here. We're not going to have a fight about it. I'm not going to get fired for saying I disagree with you. They have to kind of see the proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
But you're going to get access to their buy-in and their intelligence in a whole different way. So it's one of my favorite tools. You should use it.
Agreed.
Okay, so as we bring today's conversation in for a landing, you can catch more Kimberly and Coach content over at kimberlyandcoach.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, podcast feed on Apple Podcasts or Google.
And to you, our dear listener, thanks for tuning in to the Kimberly and Coach Show, where we endorse lazy rivers and swim-up bars at water parks as a form of self-care and community. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.